the civilians and the sailors and the officers that we had there, I mean, they just couldn't do enough. I was totally amazed. We'd have, you know, somebody would come in with a complaint about housing or something like that, which would normally would have been to the, not to me, but to them, but they would think. I can remember this one woman who was going through a divorce, and she thought that we should give her housing, and we didn't. But anyway, it was I got such good support from Ron's people here that it wasn't an issue. The other thing that I wanted to mention, well, I mentioned that how we were welcomed by the active duty people here and their spouses. My wife was really encouraged to do that. But anyway, the other thing when I ended up at Sandpoint was the civilians there. They were such nice people and great workers. I never had a single problem with a civilian employee in my organization, and I really missed them when they moved. Actually, they moved about the time I retired, I guess. But they were wonderful people. Yeah, we always had good relations with the Coast Guard, and I've always admired them. And they do a lot of good. They rescued a lot of people at sea. And once in a while they would call on us for an airplane to be a spotter plane or something. But by and large they did wonderful rescue work, wonderful. His relief was a fellow named Paul Reason. Paul Reason was the first black admiral to be head of the here. He was very popular. He ended up becoming a 4-star admiral. And I probably would say he was the best boss I ever had. He was so outgoing. I tell you the story about when he showed up. He actually had to gap the job because he was late getting relieved. So I was the interim district commander for about 2 or 3 months. And he showed up here, and it was right in the middle of Seafair. And I had been to a couple of meetings, and I didn't really latch on to a lot of who the people were. But we went down to a meeting, and I went down with him to introduce him because he was taking over all those things that the Navy did. In those days, it was a lot. So anyway, we walked into this room, and there were, I think, about a dozen gentlemen there, distinguished people from the Seafair. And we were introduced around the room, all 12 of us. And we talked a little bit, and about then, the Coast Guard Admiral showed up. Now, the Coast Guard Admiral also had not been to any of these meetings, so he didn't know anybody there. And Admiral Reason proceeded to introduce him to all 12 of those people. He never forgot a name. And I said, how do you do that one time? I said, you know, I've been with you several times and you never forget a name. And he said, well, to be honest with you, when you're the only black kid in your class at the Naval Academy and everybody knows your name, you make it a point that you're going to know their name. And he was. He was a lot of fun. I just went fishing with him a couple of years ago up in Alaska. He's a great outdoor sportsman. And his wife was wonderful people. She was very active in the Seattle community here with various groups. Interesting chaplains go through there. Yeah. And but we didn't get big crowds, probably 20 or 25 people. A few sailors, but mostly old retired folks. And we loved to get together. I was always in charge of the donuts. So we always, probably Mass went from, I don't know, 9 to 10, and donuts went from 10 to 11:30 or something like that. But some of those people are still around. But the chaplains were, one of them gave me a beautiful statue of the Virgin Mary and Jesus that he got in Germany. Another one wrote music. He was had a wonderful singing voice and could play any musical instrument there was. And another one had a beard. I remember my brother, and he was bald. My brother referred to him when he came to Mass. He said, I didn't know you had Rasputin here as your chaplain. And there was when we ran out of chaplains, there was a Irish priest that ran the Catholic Seaman Center downtown, and he loved to come in here, and he still had his Irish accent, and then, oh yeah, you know, he was a piece of work. And my brother, who came back for him, said, I think I'm in love here. He loved that Irish accent.